The final lesson of a relentless mind. It began at the end. Not with failure, not with triumph, but with a question that haunted the billionaire who had spent a lifetime outrunning doubt, fear, and limitation. A question so simple it felt almost absurd, yet it carried the weight of every decision, every sacrifice, every sleepless night that had shaped their extraordinary rise. What had all of this been for? People admire relentless minds, the visionaries who outwork, outthink, and outlast everyone around them. But few understand the cost of living in constant pursuit of something just out of reach. And today, in a world obsessed with speed and achievement, this story reveals why the final lessons often arrive only when the race has already been won. The reveal began when the billionaire stepped back from their empire for the first time in decades, not because of scandal, not because of collapse, but because something inside them had shifted, quietly, subtly, insistently. They realized they could not remember the last time they had created something out of joy rather than pressure. They could not recall the last moment they felt pride without exhaustion. The world saw a legend at their peak, but inside, the billionaire felt strangely hollow. The first signs emerged in small, almost invisible ways. Projects that once sparked excitement now felt mechanical. Meetings blurred together, filled with numbers that no longer stirred emotion. Applause, awards, recognition, once intoxicating, now passed over them like wind over stone. Even victory felt muted. The billionaire tried to ignore it, burying themselves in work with the same fierce intensity that fueled every triumph. But the feeling only grew stronger, carving space inside their mind that no achievement could fill. The reveal sharpened one quiet morning when the billionaire visited the old workshop where their first invention had been born. Dust-covered tools, faded sketches, a worn notebook filled with ideas scribbled in youthful excitement. Standing there, surrounded by the echoes of their younger self, the billionaire felt a truth they could no longer outrun. They had become a master of growth, but a stranger to themselves. It wasn't burnout. It wasn't regret. It was something deeper. A realization that the relentless pursuit of more had replaced the original dream with something unrecognizable. And in that stillness, another question emerged, sharper, heavier, impossible to ignore. If the journey consumed everything, what remained at the end? The first cracks in their relentless mindset began to show, and the final lesson, long hidden behind ambition and achievement, was preparing to reveal itself. The cracks widened as the billionaire attempted to return to their old rhythm. They pushed into new projects, chased fresh opportunities, and surrounded themselves with a familiar chaos of creation. But something inside refused to ignite. The intensity that once drove them felt distant, as if it belonged to another lifetime, another version of themselves who no longer existed. The reveal deepened when the billionaire began noticing a strange emptiness in their accomplishments. A completed deal brought no excitement. A successful launch felt routine. Praise sounded hollow. Even the empire's continued growth, once their measure of purpose, now felt disconnected, like a song they no longer resonated with. Advisors noticed a shift. Some attributed it to fatigue, others to aging. A few whispered fears that the billionaire had lost their edge. But none understood the truth forming beneath the surface. Relentless pursuit had cost the billionaire the ability to feel their own victories. The emotional unraveling accelerated during a quiet dinner with an old friend, someone who had known them long before the world did. In the middle of conversation, the friend asked a single, innocent question. What did you actually want back then? The billionaire froze. For a moment, memory pulled them backward, to the early days filled with curiosity, imagination, and joy, before the pressure, before the expectations, before the empire. That younger version of themselves had dreamed not of dominance, but of possibility, of building something meaningful, not monumental. And yet somewhere along the journey, meaning had been replaced by momentum. The billionaire returned home that night with a mind racing between past and present. They searched through old journals, early prototypes, forgotten ideas, artifact of a time when success was measured in excitement, not scale. Each discovery stung. They realized how far they had drifted from the dream that once defined them. The conflict sharpened when a major opportunity arose, a technological frontier, so vast it promised to reshape the global landscape. Investors expected the billionaire to lead it. The board insisted they were the only one capable. The world waited for their announcement. But when the billionaire looked at the proposal, they felt nothing. No spark, no fire, no sense of purpose. Just exhaustion wrapped in obligation. This was the moment everything crystallized. The empire could move forward without them, but they could no longer move forward without rediscovering themselves. The emotional weight became unbearable. Sleepless nights returned, but not from pressure, from reflection. The billionaire realized they had spent decades running toward a horizon that always moved, never stopping long enough to understand why they were running at all. The relentless mind had built empires, but it had never learned how to rest. And the final lesson, the one they had avoided their entire life, was beginning to force its way to the surface. A dream is only meaningful if the dreamer remains whole. The pressure built. The moment of truth approached. And the billionaire stood at the edge of decision that would redefine everything. The conflict erupted when the world demanded an answer the billionaire could no longer give. That monumental new opportunity, the project poised to reshape global systems, required a leader fueled by fire, not fatigue. Investors pressed harder. The board grew impatient. Media speculated endlessly about whether the billionaire had lost the hunger that once defined them. But inside, the battle had nothing to do with public expectations. It was a war between two versions of the billionaire. The relentless visionary who built an empire through sheer will, and the quiet human being who finally understood the cost of never stopping. The pressure intensified when executives presented a detailed roadmap, expecting immediate approval. They spoke passionately about market dominance, potential revenue, and global impact. But their words drifted past the billionaire like distant echoes. The numbers didn't inspire. The strategy didn't thrill. The projections didn't stir the familiar surge of ambition. Something was missing, and everyone in the room sensed it. That tension deepened when a trusted protege approached privately afterward. This protege had risen from an entry-level role to become one of the company's brightest minds. They spoke carefully, but their words were sharp with truth. You've taught us how to build, but you never taught us how to live while building. The billionaire felt the statement like a wound opening. They had always believed their relentless pace was a gift to the company, a model of dedication. But now they saw what it had become, a blueprint for burnout. The emotional weight intensified when the billionaire visited an old mentor, someone who had warned, years earlier, that ambition without reflection would eventually turn inward and devour its source. Sitting across from them now, older, wiser, and quieter, the mentor simply asked, "When did you stop letting yourself feel the world?" The billionaire couldn't answer, because somewhere along the way, in the pursuit of greatness, they had shut out everything else: love, rest, curiosity, joy, even fear, all replaced by the singular drive to achieve more. Then came the breaking moment. While reviewing early prototypes for the new global project, the billionaire saw a young engineer glowing with the same excitement they once had in their youth. Their eyes bright, their ideas bold, their passion unmistakable. It hit the billionaire with sudden force. This engineer felt something they no longer did. The dream had not died, but its keeper had reached their limit. The realization struck with crushing clarity. The most dangerous moment in a visionary's life is not when they fail. It's when they succeed so completely that they forget who they were before the success. The emotional peak rose as the billionaire stood alone once more in the old workshop, surrounded by the relics of their beginnings. This place, quiet, humble, honest, revealed the truth with painful simplicity. They could not lead the future until they reclaimed the part of themselves they had lost in the past. The next decision would not just define the company, it would define the billionaire's life. And for the first time, the final lesson stood fully in view. The climax arrived in a decision that stunned the world. At the height of expectation, with every investor, journalist, and global leader awaiting their next move, the billionaire stepped onto a stage not to unveil the new frontier, but to walk away from it. The room fell silent as they began to speak. Their voice was calm, steady, and free in a way it hadn't been in years. They admitted the truth they had spent a lifetime outrunning. That relentless ambition had taken them far, but had also taken pieces of themselves they could no longer ignore. They spoke of the weight of expectation, the hollowing out of joy, and the painful clarity that success without self can become its own form of failure. Then came the reveal that shifted everything. They would not be leading the new global project. Instead, they were elevating a new generation of thinkers, including the young engineer whose passion had reminded the billionaire of who they once were. Innovation, they said, belongs not to a single mind, but to the cycle of minds bold enough to imagine beyond their limits. Gasps echoed across the auditorium. Some felt heartbreak. Others felt awe. All felt the magnitude of what was happening. A titan of industry choosing humanity over legacy, presence over pressure, life over victory. The resolution unfolded as the billionaire continued. They announced a new foundation dedicated to nurturing creativity, curiosity, and well-being. Not for profit, not for acclaim, but for the simple purpose of giving others the balance they never found. They reminded the world that the greatest breakthroughs come not from exhaustion, but from minds allowed to breathe. In the days that followed, reactions surged across the globe. Some criticized the decision. Many celebrated it, but no one could deny its impact. The company's new leadership embraced the project with renewed energy. Innovation flourished under hands not yet worn by decades of sacrifice. The young engineer emerged as a rising force, carrying forward the dream of the fire the billionaire once knew so well. And the billionaire? They finally stepped outside the endless cycle of more. They began traveling, creating, learning, rediscovering pieces of themselves long buried beneath ambition. For the first time in years, they dreamed without pressure, not of empires or breakthroughs, but of a life lived fully. In quiet moments, they walked through small towns, read books that had nothing to do with strategy, listened to stories from strangers, and found beauty in places success had once pushed aside. They realized the final lesson they had searched for was never hidden in achievement. It was hidden in stillness. Because in the end, the legacy of a relentless mind isn't measured by the size of the empire it builds, but by the humanity it refuses to lose along the way. Subscribe to join the journey.